to grieve. On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, 5th month, and the 16th day by the Holy Calendar, by the Heavenly Calendar. Let me first begin, as usual, with the weather for the Cheongguk region. It's 52 degrees now, and it's warming up now, and today we're expected getting into the 80s. Probably a high of 83 is what is forecast. And of course, as I've been reporting, Sunday and Monday will be in the low 90s, according to the forecast, and then the Tuesday down at the upper 80s, but still above normal. But then after that, we'll get down towards more normal temperatures, which maybe is a welcome change since the colder weather that we were having, much lower than normal weather that we were having the last couple of weeks before this. On Saturday, I like to go through the AccuWeather.com's weekly wrap-up on the weather. Florida, they were having a lot of rain this week. More than a foot of rain fell in some parts of South Florida this week, leading to intense flooding. Some locations received more rain in 2 to 3 days than throughout all of February to the start of June. The rain broke daily records in cities from Fort Lauderdale to West Palm Beach. Some flights were disrupted at Fort Lauderdale and Miami airports. The strongest winter storm in recent years to hit Cape Town, South Africa, killed at least 10 people this week. That's in South Africa. Destructive winds, flooding, downpours, and frequent lightning battered the region on Tuesday and Wednesday. Wind gusts over 50 miles an hour were common throughout the city, resulting in widespread downed trees as well as damage to homes. The BBC reported many people sustained injuries due to flying debris. A man in Rochester, New York, is just happy to be alive after he was struck by lightning while sitting in his office on Monday. The Associated Press reported Nick Gamayel was sitting in his office at an auto repair shop when he saw a bright flash from a light switch, he told the AP. The power went out, and after several minutes he realized his hand was blistering. The bolt had surged through the light switch and hit his left hand. He was later treated at a local hospital and released. Wow, struck by lightning while he was sitting at his office. Lightning can get you even inside the house. Let's turn to our Rima for this morning now. I'm in the book of Isaiah, chapter 38. Beginning at the verse 1. In those days was Hezekiah sick unto death. And Isaiah the prophet, the son of Amoz, came unto him and said to him, Thus saith the Lord, set thine house in order, for thou shalt die and not live. Then Hezekiah turned his face toward the wall and prayed unto the Lord, and said, Remember now, O Lord, I beseech thee, how I have walked before thee in truth and with a perfect heart, and have done what is good in thy sight. And Hezekiah wept sore. Then came the word of the Lord to Isaiah, saying, Go and say to Hezekiah, Thus saith the Lord, the God of David thy father, I have heard thy prayer, I have seen thy tears. Behold, I will add unto thy days 15 years. And I will deliver thee and this city out of the hand of the king of Assyria, and I will defend this city. And this shall be a sign unto thee from the Lord, that the Lord will do this thing that he hath spoken. Isaiah chapter 38, verses 1 through 7. Hezekiah was told by Isaiah that he was going to die, that actually Isaiah was, he was just the messenger, that he was going, saying that Hezekiah was going to die. And Hezekiah prayed, I've done everything you told me to. And he cried, and the Lord heard his prayer and said, okay, I'll give you another 15 years. A very interesting passage, but it really shows that our lives are in the hands of God, and that we don't decide when we go or when we come, and if He has more things for us to do on this earth, then He will keep us here for 5 or 10 or 15 years or whatever. But if we are either maybe doing more bad than good, or if our function here on earth has ended, then God will take us to the spirit world and to the next stage of our lives. Of course, many people don't realize that actually this life on earth is only the second of 3 stages in our lives, and that, of course, the first stage we spend in our mother's womb, and where life begins at conception. And then we come to this earthly world, and we spend something usually less than 100 years here, and then we move on to the spirit world, where we are there for eternity. And our life in the womb is there so that we can develop and prepare what we need, the organs that we need, and the muscles and so forth, the heart and so forth that we need in order to survive and do well in the earthly world. And so in the same way, our function, our time here in the earthly world is so that we can develop the functions and the organs and the things that we need when we get to the spirit world. And what we need most of all in the spirit world, of course, is love. Because in the spirit world, our true fathers taught us that we will breathe love just in a similar way as we breathe air here. And so people who are not capable of breathing love will have a very difficult time here. It would be like not being able to breathe air here, not being able to take air into your lungs. You can imagine how terrible that would be if we were not able to breathe air here. Of course, in the spirit world, if we were not able to breathe here, of course, we would die. But in the spirit world, that condition lasts for eternity, and that is hell. Not being able to breathe, not being able to inhale love and exhale love, to receive love and to give love. That is truly what hell would be like in the spirit world. And of course, love comes from God, and so to be able to receive and exhale love means that we have a relationship with God. So our time here is best spent at developing our relationship with God, and we do that because we are fallen. We are separated from God, and so Christ is sent twice to this earth to help us to come back to God and to reconnect with God, so that we could actually go to the spirit world in a situation where we do have a relationship with God, and when we are able to survive and thrive in the spirit world. And, so, and of course, that is why also our Father has taught us that the kingdom of heaven is not a place that we go alone, but we go there with our spouse and with our family, because because the family is the training ground, the training place for love, and that is where here on this earth we are able to learn how to love in all the different ways, because love is not the same. Love between husband and wife is different from love between father and son, father and daughter, mother and son, mother and daughter. Or it is also different from grandparents. Grandparents' love for the grandchildren is different from the parents' love for their children. The parents tend to be more strict in their upbringing of the children. The grandparents tend to be a lot less strict, shall we say. But that all that is necessary. And so Father's ideal for the family was for 3 generations to live under one roof, so that the children can relate to the parents and to the grandparents, and you have that 4-position foundation of love occurring in many ways in that kind of a family situation. Unfortunately, the family has broken down in our society today, and that, of course, is Satan's doing, because he knows the importance of the family. Today's society is set up so that men and women, fathers and mothers, have to both work and leave the children at home in many cases alone for hours on a day. Or even worse, the husband and wife become divorced, and the children are shuttled back and forth between 2 parents. Oh, this is my mom. This is the weekend I'm with my dad. This is the weekend I'm with my mom, etc., etc. Well, I'm spending Christmas with my dad. Thanksgiving with my mom. This kind of a thing. That kind of a family situation definitely is not the ideal situation for preparing ourselves or preparing the children for life in the spirit world. So Hezekiah was given 15 years, and I have not read the rest of the chapter to see what he did with those 15 years, but certainly God had something in mind for him. All right, let's take a break, and we will come back. We have a special guest today, and we'll come back after a minute or so with our special guest, and we'll start going through the news from a Chunuguk perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise. We speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, 5th month, and the 16th day. And I'm joined now with Malik Pachajian. Is that how to pronounce your last name? Oh, thank you. Pachajian. Pachajian. The accent is on the first syllable. Okay, thank you. And we're going to start going through the news today. I wanted to start with a article that I found in Philly.com. I guess this is run by the Philadelphia Inquirer, which is a newspaper in Philadelphia. And here it says it's reporting that according to the Drug Enforcement Agency, that's the federal agency, fatal overdoses rose to 37% across Pennsylvania in 2016. Across Pennsylvania, drug overdoses rose by a stunning 37% last year, the Federal Drug Enforcement Agency announced Thursday. All told, 13 people died every day of a drug overdose in Pennsylvania, sending the state's 2016 death toll to a record high. Appalling as the Philadelphia numbers were, 907 deaths in the city alone, fatality rates in some suburban counties and parts of western Pennsylvania, including Allegheny County, which includes Pittsburgh, rose much faster. The numbers are horrific, absolutely horrific, said Patrick Traynor, spokesman for the Drug Enforcement Administration's Philadelphia Field Division, who worked street-level investigations for nearly 2 decades. It's really bad. The DEA on Thursday released specific numbers for the state and southeastern counties, though other analysts have quantified trends elsewhere in the state. The full DEA report is due later this month. New Jersey's 2016 numbers were not available. And I think you're seeing this on your screen now. I believe my computer screen is being given okay. And you see here Bucks County, Chester County, Delaware County, Montgomery County. These are all counties around Philadelphia. And then there you see the Philadelphia county itself there. And so the 2016 overdoses per 100,000, I believe, the fatal overdoses per 100,000, 26, 19, 36, 18, 59, 36 fatal overdoses per 100,000 population. I don't have the murder rate right on hand, but that seems to be, it seems like it's much higher than even the murder rate. Probably in those counties. And as they say, they only have this for Philadelphia and southeastern Pennsylvania, but I'm eager to see the full DEA report later this month to look at what the situation is in northeast Pennsylvania, where we live and work. I suspect that here, too, the fatal overdoses are increasing. I remember attending a presentation by a police officer, how long ago was that? About a year ago it must have been, where he described the drug problem in this area, Pike County, Wayne County, and other areas of northeast Pennsylvania. And he was pretty. He had some numbers there that were pretty shocking too. And he was saying that what happens often is that people get on painkillers, on prescription painkillers, but then their insurance runs out, or the doctor cannot prescribe anything more, and so then they have to go to something else, so that's not covered by insurance, and when they're not covered by insurance, the prescription painkillers are very expensive, or they're hard to get. If you don't have a prescription, you can't get them legally, and so then they turn to the black market, and on the black market, heroin is actually cheaper than these painkillers, black market painkillers. And so he was saying that for that reason, heroin overdoses were increasing in this northeast Pennsylvania area. Let me see here. I lost my place. At 4,642, the total number of fatal overdoses in Pennsylvania was nearly 4 times the number of fatal traffic accidents. Prescription or illicit opioids such as heroin were implicated in 85% of the drug fatalities, according to the DEA. The data collected from coroners and medical examiners from across the state was compiled by the DEA and analyzed with assistance from the University of Pittsburgh. So it makes me wonder, they're comparing this to fatal traffic accidents, but Philadelphia is a Democratic city, and I suspect Philadelphia Inquirer is a Democratic newspaper or supports Democratic candidates. Why not compare this to their favorite thing, which is gun violence? Maybe this is a much more serious thing than gun violence, huh? And maybe we should be spending more time trying to figure out how to solve this problem if we want to save lives, than trying to limit people's rights to hold guns.
Well, apparently it seems that a lot of gun violence is spurred by the, drug trade.
There you go. Yeah.
You could see that in Chicago, where
Yeah.
so many blacks
Good
are
point.
being killed.
Mm-hmm.
It's like an epidemic there.
Mm-hmm. That's right. That would be interesting to correlate. Okay, how many of these, gun deaths are related to this opioid problem,
Yes.
the drug problem, and the black market for drugs? So good point. Maybe a good way to reduce gun violence would be to decriminalize drugs and deal with it in a completely different way.
Well, I think they get their numbers too by that's where gun violence is spurred, because like owners of guns don't go out and commit violence with their guns. I mean, they have them for protection or home protection or hunting. It's not something they use for violence. But in drug trade, apparently you need guns.
You're right. Yeah, you do.
And they're mostly
Yeah.
illegal guns.
Right. That's right. Well, yeah. Mostly, I would say, yes, probably, maybe even almost all. So it would seem to me that going to a system like was experimented successfully in Portugal, for example, might be a good answer for the United States. A good alternative, at least for the United States, that might be worth trying, because obviously the current war on drugs is not working. If the number of fatal overdoses is growing by 37% a year, and it's at a point now where, at least in Pennsylvania, it's 4 times the number of fatal traffic accidents. People maybe just take a step back and say, wait a second, this isn't working. I think Gay Tugwell, the head of the local DEA division, called the data evidence an unprecedented epidemic of drug abuse. We know that prescription opioid and heroin epidemic is not limited to inner-city neighborhoods, such as the crack cocaine epidemic of the 1980s largely was, said Tugwell. Unfortunately, some of the largest increases in drug-related overdose deaths were in rural counties across Pennsylvania. And that's why I want to see the results for this area, because this is definitely considered some of the rural counties of Pennsylvania. Cases involving fentanyl, the extraordinarily potent synthetic opioid sometimes added to heroin, without the user's knowledge, rose dramatically, as they have in many parts of the country. And for the first time in Allegheny County, fentanyl was found in more people than heroin, said Janine Buchanan, an epidemiologist at Pitt's Graduate School of Public Health, who tracks overdose data. She said that fentanyl was found in about 2/3 of drug fatalities there in the Pittsburgh area, and heroin about half. Many cases included both the drugs. The Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office had earlier reported that fentanyl and heroin were each found in roughly 45% of drug overdose deaths last year. There appear to be two distinct epidemics in Pennsylvania, said Donald S. Burke, who, as dean of Pitt's Graduate School, changed the focus of its modeling unit from infectious diseases to opioids. Southeastern Pennsylvania historically has been a source of extremely pure and cheap heroin, which is now drawing some users whose addictions began with prescription pain pills, like I mentioned. Western Pennsylvania is an extension of Appalachia, an epicenter of the opioid epidemic. Buchanan said that overdose fatalities in several western Pennsylvania counties had increased by 50% or more last year. Beaver counties more than doubled, she said. And very preliminary statistics for the first few months of 2017 show continuing increases in Pennsylvania. Clearly, it is impossible to predict what is going to happen, Buchanan said. Wow. So that is going on right around us. People are dying right and left here of the drug overdoses. The total number of fatal overdoses in Pennsylvania was nearly 4 times the number of fatal traffic accidents in 2016. And I would like to see it compared to other causes of death as well. I'm not sure why they chose to compare it with the traffic accidents, and perhaps that's the politically less sensitive thing.
Well, I heard on the news yesterday that there's a drug that's being counterfeited that's, I don't know, 10 times more powerful than heroin.
Yeah, that's the fentanyl I think they're talking about. It's a synthetic thing. And actually, I can't pull it up now, but I was reading an article that a lot of this fentanyl is being, it's synthetic, it's man-made.
Right.
And it's being created in China and being imported to the United States through the U.S. Postal Service. And this article was about a law being considered in Congress to tighten the inspection of packages coming in from overseas through the U.S. Postal Service so as to catch this fentanyl that's coming in. And apparently the private carriers like UPS and FedEx were doing much better for some reason than USPS was in inspecting these packages from overseas and catching the fentanyl. But the U.S. Postal Service, for some reason, there's some kind of a loophole that the importers were able to use to get their packages through. So yeah, the fentanyl epidemic is very serious. As I said here, many times the drug sellers will mix the fentanyl into the heroin so that the heroin becomes much more potent. But then the users don't realize this, and so they use the normal amount of heroin, I guess, whatever that is, and then they overdose as a result, not knowing that they're using a drug that is much more potent. And that's part of the reason for that would be part of the reason for arguing in favor of a decriminalization, so that a system could be set up where people know what they are getting. Okay, if they have to take it, so that you can say, okay, well, this has got this much fentanyl in it, or it has no fentanyl in it, so that because in this black market, it's a complete buyer beware situation where, unfortunately, the result of using something that you don't know what is, what's in it, can be fatal, and it often is fatal for people. In Cheongguk Constitution, it says that drugs like this can be regulated by the government, by the federal government, but not banned. And the reason for that is that citizens of Cheongguk should be mature enough that they don't have to rely on the government, which is in the arcane position, to tell them what is right and what is wrong. Using drugs is not a good thing. Using drugs, I don't condone that, and I certainly would advise people against that. And the second king of Cheongguk also, father also advised strongly against using drugs in very strong terms. But we shouldn't rely on the government to keep us from doing that. I think that also the solution here, if the war on drugs is not working, which it is clearly not, if the war on drugs is not working, then we need to find another way of doing it by involving the private sector, churches, community organizations, and other organizations, because this epidemic is growing, and we don't know we don't know how far it's going to go. We hope it doesn't have to go too far before people just finally take a step back and said, we have to try something radically different. Private sector and and free competition to see which organization is able to come up with the best solutions, the best models for dealing with this kind of a problem.
I would think that the medical establishment needs to take some kind of responsibility too, since they're providing these drugs
Yeah.
for, legitimately for people to be out of pain. You see a lot of veterans who come back from war, or they need these drugs in the beginning, but there has to be a way to get off them.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's a good
remember when
point.
I was younger, they had a program for methadone to get people off of heroin. So I don't know if there's anything going on like that now.
Yeah. All right. That music says that it's time for us to take a break, and so let's do that, and we'll come back with more news from a Cheongguk perspective in just a minute.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th, 2017, 8th year of Cheongguk, 5th month and 16th day. I'm Tim Elder. I'm sitting in for Hyungjin Moon, the second king of Cheongguk, and I'm here with Malek Pachajan, going through the news from a Cheongguk perspective. And let's turn now to the health care bill. That's the repeal and replacement, we were told, for Obamacare, and we'll see how it was passed by the House, and we'll see now how it's doing in the Senate. Spoiler alert, it's not good. Conservative senators and allied outside groups are on the verge of rebellion against the Senate's Obamacare repeal effort, potentially derailing delicate negotiations to overhaul the nation's healthcare system. As Obamacare repeal talks enter crunch time with a vote as soon as this month, the Senate bill continues to tilt toward more moderate members of the GOP on keeping some of Obamacare's regulatory structure and providing a more generous wind-down of the law's Medicaid expansion. The movement has made Republicans increasingly pessimistic that two critical conservative senators, Mike Lee of Utah and Rand Paul of Kentucky will be able to vote for the GOP's ultimate agreement on health care, according to senators and aides. I think Lee is a no, and Rand will be a no, said a Republican senator granted anonymity to discuss sensitive internal conference matters. Losing those two senators would be a major blow that would allow Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell no further defections in his 52-senator majority and make Senator Susan Collins of Maine and Lisa Murkowski of Alaska the key swing votes. Those are both moderate or Republican senators, further imperiling the Conservatives' negotiating position in a Senate in which McConnell needs 50 votes at a minimum. Worry is increasing among conservatives inside and outside the Capitol that the bill is tipping toward the moderates, said a Republican working on the repeal effort. And after weeks of sparring, the tug-of-war between conservatives and more centrist Republicans is finally reaching its climax. Quote, I don't think it's insurmountable, but I think the passion's going up on each side, unquote, said Senator Shelley Moore Capito, Republican of West Virginia, who is pushing for more robust Medicaid benefits against conservative opposition. Quote, the heat's definitely rising, unquote. On the right, Senator Ted Cruz, Republican of Texas, has also voiced skepticism with the party's description, saying the party has a long way to go on the repeal effort. And Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas is also said to be growing wary of the party's direction, GOP insiders said. But both are currently viewed as more gettable than Lee and Paul, two senators who have shown a consistent proclivity for bucking McConnell. Since there is no bill text yet, both Lee and Cruz have declined to take an official position on the emerging proposal. Lee declined to comment for this story, while Paul said he's still attempting to push the bill to the right. The Kentucky Republican, however, has been on a warpath in the GOP conference lunches over the past week, and Republicans do not believe he will vote with them. In an interview this week, he charged that the House bill is bad enough because it keeps 90% of Obamacare. And he proposes that, he said that he proposes the creation of high-risk pools favored by many Republicans. He opposes the creation of high-risk pools favored by many Republicans and urged Republicans to abandon attempts to save the individual marketplace with an infusion of cash. Quote, we promised voters that we'd repeal Obamacare, unquote, Paul said. Quote, instead, we want to repeal sort of a tiny bit of it and replace it with something that looks a lot like Obamacare, unquote. That's Rand Paul. One reason they aren't officially no votes is that negotiations could yet tilt rightward next week as Republicans near a decision point on what exactly they will put on the Senate floor. And the conservative concern is broader than just those two senators, as Senator Pat Toomey, Republican of Pennsylvania, fights to restrain future Medicaid spending, and Cruz urges dismantling of Obamacare's regulations. The outlined leadership has presented isn't Obamacare repeal. In fact, it isn't even reform. It's a tax cut and a corporate bailout masquerading as health legislation, unquote, said a conservative Senate aide. Allied conservative groups are also increasingly rattled by the Senate negotiations after they had reluctantly withdrawn opposition to the House's bill in the hopes that the Senate would improve the bill. Their decision not to oppose the House bill ultimately opened the door for passage, but key players on the right believe the Senate could sandbag them. Quote, I'm concerned. That's as far as I'm willing to go right now, and until I know exactly what I'm looking at, said Jason Pei, FreedomWorks' public policy director. Quote, what the Senate did in 2015, they got the reconciliation bill and they fixed it. The House bill sucked and they fixed it. We thought they were going to do the same thing. Instead, what Republicans are talking about doing strikes many conservatives as too close to the structures of Obamacare. There is general agreement among the majority of the conference that a large, quote, stabilization, unquote, fund is necessary to help individual insurance markets stay afloat, as well as tossing away House language that allowed people with pre-existing conditions to be charged much more money. Republicans are still not settled on how precisely to handle future Medicaid spending, but there is growing consensus that the expansion's wind down will be pushed past the House's 2020 cutoff. All of those moves are likely to require more funding, and the way to get it is to delay repeal of some of Obamacare's tax increases, a strategy that isn't going to fly with conservatives. Yeah. There are third rails that they can touch on the bill. They keep Obamacare tax increases. They don't lower premiums. Conservatives will oppose it, said David McIntosh, president of the Club for Growth. I'm tired of Republicans promising they would repeal Obamacare and then negotiating to keep it, unquote. That's David McIntosh, president of Club for Growth. Indeed, Republicans are now far from where they began on their repeal quest. The original plan was to pass a 2015 bill vetoed by President Barack Obama that would essentially have scrapped much of the law with no replacement. But much of the GOP, including the right flank, eventually came to the realization that scrapping the coverage gains of Obamacare with nothing to replace those safety nets would be a political disaster. That arc has conservatives arguing they've already compromised by accepting that tax credits, a gradual Medicaid phase-out, and billions of dollars in money for the insurance industry must be part of the solution. Another conservative concern is that abortion restrictions and cuts to Planned Parenthood could be axed from the bill over procedural or political calculations. Quote, conservatives have demonstrated a willingness to work with more moderate lawmakers to begin undoing the damage caused by Obamacare, but moderates need to make concessions as well if Republicans are going to deliver on their 7-year promise, unquote, said David Holler, vice president of Heritage Action, a conservative lobbying outfit. Republican leaders insist that nothing is settled on the Obamacare repeal bill, even though initial proposals were being submitted to the Congressional Budget Office throughout the week and into the weekend. But they know an ideological reckoning is upon the party, as it's on the precipice of finally making good on repealing a law that's driven the Republican political strategy for the better part of a decade. It's a good jump ball. Can you make it more conservative, or do you have to make it more moderate? How do you get to 50 votes? Mused Senator Thomas Thune of South Dakota, the number 3 GOP leader. It's a numbers game right now, and the leader is listening and trying to referee. So that doesn't give me too much hope. That does not give me too much hope that we're going to see anything good come out of this process.
Well, it seems like nobody can agree on anything.
Well, I think, in my mind, what's happening is that nobody can come up with the courage to do what is right. And what is right is, the free market is right.
That's right.
And the idea here is that, the idea behind Obamacare was that government intervention would improve the healthcare situation in America. And that wasn't the case. Mm-hmm. And so now the solution to this failed government intervention is more government intervention. And it's not going to work. It's not working.
Yeah.
They can't agree on how the government should intervene. But I think, to me, what they need to say is, let's try a lack of government intervention. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it'll be painful because, and the reason it's going to be painful is that government intervention has caused so much problems and so much distortion in the marketplace. And so, there will be a price to pay for that. But the difference is, are you going to pay that price, like taking off a Band-Aid? If you rip it off, it hurts, right? Mm-hmm. But if you take it off slowly, it also hurts, but it hurts a longer time. Mm-hmm. So whether you want to rip off the Band-Aid quickly and get the pain over with quickly, or rip it off little by little over a period of time is the difference. Mm-hmm. But frankly, though, going little by little over time is not going to really work either, because they basically delays the pain, and the more you delay it, the worse it gets. The more distorted the market becomes, and the worse the eventual pain, I think. So they're talking, about putting billions of dollars to bail out the health insurance industry. Right there you can see, that's not good. That's not good.
Well, one problem, too, is with Obamacare that the cost of insurance keeps going up and up and up.
Yes.
And it's like tripling, doubling. It depends where you live.
Yes.
And most insurance companies won't even cover you anymore.
Yeah, some counties are losing all options. There are no Obamacare options in some counties across the country now, now and over the next year or so.
Yeah.
And that is the result of government intervention. If the free market were allowed to operate, I don't think that would be happening.
Yeah, I think when I was a child too, that's the way it was. The government was, I don't think they were involved at all or very little. You would have doctors come to your house and they'd pay a visit for $5 or $10. You know,
That was-
you never see these days again.
Now you are telling us your age.
Yeah,
That was a very long time ago.
It
That
was.
doctors were making house calls.
yeah, and they came to my house. I remember them when I was a kid.
When I was a child, of course, I was a child in Japan, and we lived across the street from a doctor's office. And one night, I think I had some kind of a gas in my intestines or something like that. I woke up with severe pain in my lower abdomen, and my parents rushed me across the street and banged on the door of the doctor's office because they didn't know. They thought their child was dying or something, probably. And he sort of woke him up, and he was in his bed because it was also his house.
Yeah, he couldn't
So
escape.
that was in a rural Japanese town, very different from the situation here. And frankly, I don't know what kind of an insurance we had in Japan. But you know, America boasts that it has the best healthcare in the world. And that's true, you know, if you have some cancer or some rare disease or something like that. But for general everyday healthcare, I would say that that's true. And part of the problem, of course, is that the doctors have to accumulate an incredible amount of student debt as they're going through their training, education and training. And they have to pay that back. And that's one of the reasons that they need to charge a lot of money to their patients so that they can pay the banks for their student loans that they're and other financial debts that they've incurred
Well, the doctors themselves have to pay a lot of insurance.
for malpractice.
Yeah,
Yes,
malpractice insurance. It's so easy to sue a doctor.
right, and that's another source of high healthcare costs
That's
in
right.
the United States. So these are some of the causes. So you got government intervention, you have student loans, you have malpractice, insurance premiums. All these are some of the causes, and of course the cost of drugs as well, where you know some drugs can cost tens of thousands of dollars in the United States, whereas they're very little in other countries. I think the drug, what was it, for Lyme disease, the King was pointing this out, was one of our members of our congregation tried to buy it here, and it was tens of thousands of dollars, where it was just almost pocket change in Korea.
Yeah, why such a big difference for American drugs or any other country's drugs? Are much
Well, I used to work for a pharmaceutical firm before I joined Unification Church, and so I can give you the spiel, but it's all development costs, folks. You know, we got to get our money somehow. It's a scandal. Yeah, so but we are seeing what happens when the free market is not able to operate, and where the government feels that it has to intervene. And I think that is really wrong, and it's wrong because Obamacare is going to fail. Obamacare is going to fail, and if you replace it with something similar or worse, that's going to fail too. And eventually, of course, people are worried about their next election, and so they want to pass something this year so that they can get elected next year. That's basically what's driving this, not trying to do what is best for the country or even what is best in the long-term interests of their electorate, but what is best in the short-term interests, what is best for them to get reelected in 2018 at the midterm elections. So this is not giving me much hope. But I think at some point there will have to be a reset. I don't know when that will be, but this is not going in a good direction at all. it's not just an ideological, philosophical matter. It's an actual economic matter.
That's right.
Because always, if you try to fight the free market will win, and that's what bubbles are about. And anyway, we'll see how this proceeds. We hope that something can change here, where better minds can prevail. I'm not hopeful on this. Anyway, we'll take a break and come back with more news from a Chonic perspective after this short break.
At break of day, in hope we rise. We speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise. We speak your name.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for your usual host, Hyungjin Moon, the second king of Cheongguk. And I'm here with Malik Pachajan. I'm getting it right this time?
Yes,
Okay,
you got
thank
it very good.
He has an unusual surname, which is a very wonderful surname. And we are going through the news now from a Cheongguk perspective. And I want to spend this segment talking about Ramadan and Islamic terrorism, because we have now reached 1,000 fatalities from the Ramadan deaths. The death toll in the first 14 days of holiest month for Muslims has reached a grim milestone, more than 70 attacks in 21 predominantly Muslim countries. Not only predominantly Muslim countries, actually, if you look at their list, I think this is probably mostly in predominantly Muslim countries, is what they should have said, have yielded an estimated 1,003 fatalities and 1,036 injuries. With more than half of the month left over, this year's Ramadan is already the bloodiest in recent memory, far surpassing the 421 deaths and 729 injuries that took place during the same period in 2016. That was considered the deadliest Ramadan in years. And I already went through this list a couple days ago, but I just want to update you on some of the recent deaths. Let's see, where shall we start? Shall we start June 7th? Kandahar, Afghanistan, Islamabad's intelligence agency attacked refugee camp in Kandahar province, which borders Pakistan, killing 3, including 2 children, and wounding 8, including women. On June 7th, Tehran, ISIS claims responsibility for attacking Shiite country's parliament while wearing women's attire and killing 12, injuring up to 42, marking the first time the Sunni extremist group carries out an attack in the Islamic Republic of Iran. And then also in Iran, on the same day, June 7th, Islamic State suicide bombers target Shiite shrine of revolutionary leader Ayatollah Khomeini, located just outside the capital, killing 2 and injuring 10. And also on June 7th, in Nigeria, Boko Haram killed 14 and wounded 24. Boko Haram, of course, is an Islamic extremist organization. June 8th, in Somalia, Al-Qaeda-linked Al-Shabaab killed 70 people, including some women who were decapitated, and they also wounded 18. And same day, June 8th, at Diyala, Iraq, a terrorist including ISIS killed 9 and wounding 4. And also on June 8th in Iraq, Mosul, Iraq, United Nations reports that ISIS killed 231 civilians as they tried to escape the city between May 26th and June 3rd. So that May 26th and June 3rd period would have all fallen within the Ramadan period. June 8th, also in Mosul, Iraq, ISIS fires chlorine-filled bombs at civilians, killing 13, mostly women and children. June 8th, Baluchistan, Pakistan, ISIS claims to have killed 2 Chinese nationals kidnapped on May 24th. And June 9th, Karbala, Iraq, ISIS kills at least 30 and wounds 34 in the Shiite holy city. So we hear about, attacks that occur in London. 7 people were killed in the most recent attack in London, which occurred, a week ago? And or was that more than a week ago now, isn't it? And that makes big news around the world. But look, 231 civilians were killed by ISIS as they tried to escape the city between May 26th and June 3rd, and that doesn't make the headlines.
I haven't heard of it.
Yeah. Or yesterday, ISIS killed at least 30 and wounded 34 in Karbala, Iraq, and we don't hear about that.
Yeah.
So all these attacks are occurring on a daily basis, not just one a day, but June 8th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. June 7th, 1, 2, 3, 4. June 6th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. June 5th, 1, 2, 3. June 4th, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. June 3rd, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. June 2nd, 2. June 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So all, and most of these are occurring in Islamic majority countries. But I also see Australia here, June 5th, where an ISIS-linked migrant from Somalia killed a man, takes a prostitute as hostage and injures 4. And in, of course, at Paris, France, jihadist wounds 1 cop with a hammer outside Notre Dame. See, we heard about that.
Yes.
And that was just a wounding.
And the thing is, it dominated the news for the whole day.
Right. That was so someone stubs their toe in Paris, and you hear about that.
Yeah.
But then all these people being killed in these Arab Islamic majority countries, and we don't hear about that. So, but this kind of situation is going on through this what they call their holiest month of Ramadan. For the vast majority of people who believe in Islam, they're not out there killing people.
Right.
But they also, I would argue, that they are not aware of the fundamental nature of their religion. I think David Woods has given a number of very instructive videos on this, and he reads the Quran and Hadith in the original Arabic, and points out how violence and misogyny and homophobia, although I don't like that term, but anti-gay, violent anti-gay philosophy is very much at the root of Islam. And we see that coming out during this kind of a time. Of course, it goes on all the time, but especially during Ramadan, because at the beginning of Ramadan, ISIS put out a statement basically saying, hey, this is our holy month, so let's go out and kill as many infidels as we can. Let's run up the... And infidel is anyone who does not believe in their version of Islam.
That's right.
But they are sort of going back to the roots of Islam to bring out the very violent, fundamental nature of Islam to do this. So we still have a couple weeks remaining. I think it goes until June 24th, I think is the last day of this violent holy month of Islam. So there will be more, and there will be many more incidents like this, and some of them will occur outside of the predominantly Muslim countries, such as in London. And this is and people say, oh no, Trump shouldn't have a travel ban. But Trump keeps coming back on his Twitter account and saying, yeah, we need a travel ban. Now that travel ban is before the Supreme Court. It was political judges politically motivated judges are trying to block it on the trial level and also on the appeals level. And so now President Trump's watered-down travel ban, as he calls it himself, which is not pleased at the fact that the Justice Department has submitted this watered-down version of his travel ban to the Supreme Court, but it is before the Supreme Court now and being considered there. And so if these kinds of incidents are to be kept out of the United States, definitely something like that is necessary. Mm-hmm. Would you agree with that?
I agree. I mean, it's a travel ban from just a few countries who cannot say what the background of these people are who are coming here. They don't vet them properly.
Right.
It's not a Muslim ban because there are so many Muslims in so many other countries which are not banned.
That's right. Indonesia has the largest Muslim population in the world, and it is not on that list.
Yeah.
If you were going to ban Muslims, you would have to start with Indonesia.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is definitely not a Muslim ban, and it's but it's a list that was drawn up by the Obama administration, actually.
That's right.
Saying that these are countries where these are Muslim majority countries where terrorism is prevalent, and so when people come from these countries, we need to look a little more deeply to see who they are and what their background is and why they're coming to the United States.
Yes, and those countries don't vet those people
Right.
properly. They don't. You can't tell their background.
Right.
You don't know anything about them.
Right. So if someone is coming from Indonesia, they're Muslim, but we don't need to worry quite so much about them
Right.
because terrorism is not nearly as prevalent in Indonesia. In fact, here on this list, let's see if I can find Indonesia. Let's see. I see India once, but not Cameroon, Yemen, Niger, Iraq, Afghanistan, Iraq, Nigeria, Kenya, Syria, Pakistan, Iraq. I don't see Indonesia. That's interesting because that is the largest. Indonesia is not on this list. That is the largest Muslim population, and so you might expect that there will be some Ramadan killings in Indonesia. I don't know. Maybe they're not being reported. Maybe they're occurring but not being reported. That would be an interesting thing to look into a little more deeply. But at least it hasn't made this Breitbart list of Ramadan killings. So we'll have to look into the reason for that. Maybe.
Well, it
have a
depends
different
where
version
ISIS
of
or these
Islam.
radical groups are operating too, where they have ability to have their, recruiting or radicalizing other people. If they don't have the ability in Indonesia because the authorities catch them or kick them out, then they can't radicalize them. Because I think basically it's the radical groups who change, in certain people of the Muslim faith to act in a certain way. I don't think the Quran teaches that you're supposed to kill infidels. In other words, otherwise they'd all be out killing people who don't believe the way they do. I think that this was a result. Killing infidels was the Meccans who were attacking Medina when Muhammad escaped there So I think that was at one period of war between Mecca and Medina that they're taking these things.
David Woods points out that there are three stages of jihad, where when Muslims are in the minority, they get along with people very, very well. But as it becomes more extreme, so I'm looking at an article from Indonesia about Ramadan. I don't see anything about violence here. There has been a spate of disturbing crackdowns on gay Indonesians and a suicide bombing attack Wednesday in an East Jakarta train station Experts have speculated at least one factor behind the former is a desire for high-profile value signaling before the holy month, etc., etc. For at least 5 years, hardline groups like Islamic Defenders Front have staged unofficial sweeps of restaurants, bars, and clubs they claim disrespect Ramadan, during which Muslims abstain from eating, drinking, alcohol, and sex from dawn to dusk. No reports of people going house to house to see if people are having sex. I haven't seen that kind of report. But anyway, the emergence of Islamic majoritarianism means this year's Ramadan will be more strict on a societal level, even though the police has repeatedly stated that sweeping won't be allowed. In the past, they generally actually took a soft hand, either helping or escorting the sweepings. Although Indonesia is an officially secular country that recognizes and protects 6 religions, Sharia-inspired bylaws have been on the rise in recent years, numbering about 440 in 2015. Both the police and the FBI habitually raid red light districts and other sites of the sex trade before and during Ramadan. I see, okay. That's where they crack down on sex. In 2011, FBI illicitly raided bars in East Java. Last Sunday, they raided the popular gay sauna in Jakarta, where 141 men were arrested at a, quote, sex party, unquote. Earlier in May, 14 gay men in Surabaya were arrested on a similar party and forced to have HIV tests. This week, West Java police announced a task force to target gay Indonesians. The fact that all these occurred in close succession is typical of the virtue-based crackdowns surrounding Ramadan. I see. So Ramadan is a bit different in Indonesia from Iraq and Afghanistan, but ISIS, is taking this situation, as an opportunity to kill as many people as they can. So I'm telling people, watch out. Don't allow yourself to get killed. Don't let them run up their body count, because that is their objective.
Yeah.
So they want to. And they say that rewards are doubled during Ramadan. I'm not sure if that means you get 2-for-1 deal on versions in heaven, but apparently they have some kind of a doubling of their benefits, spiritual benefits, if they.
Is it just spiritual benefits, or is there money involved?
The families of some of the suicide bombers are certainly taken care of after this.
Yes, they are.
Especially in the that's been a problem in Palestine,
Yes,
Palestinian
that's
Authority
right.
regions, and that's one reason that people don't want to support the Palestinian Authority, because the money is being used to help the families of terrorists and to encourage other terrorists.
Exactly.
But mostly, I think the benefits are spiritual, because people are, the best is if you kill yourself as well, if you blow yourself up as well, rather than try to survive the attack. Yeah. Although both types of attacks are being encouraged by ISIS this month. So let's be aware that this is what's going on in the world, and let's help President Trump keep America safe. And if you're overseas, outside the United States, stay away from crowds. And I would also stay away from crowds inside the United States as well, but especially outside, and especially in Europe and in other places around the world, especially in Arab countries, or Islamic countries, Islamic majority countries. I would stay away from crowds, because that is where the terrorists are trying to run up their body counts.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a break now, and we'll be back in another minute with more news from a Choni Group perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise. We speak your name.
Homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens. Wrapped in your
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second King of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Malik Pachajan. Today, we're going through the news from a Cheongguk perspective, and this segment I wanted to turn to the Korean Peninsula, where we have a bomb that's going to go off at some point, I think, and it will go off at some point. And we'll see what's going on there. But U.S. is uneasy, according to this Financial Times report, uneasy as South Korea's Moon Jae-in tilts toward China. Moon Jae-in, of course, being the new president that was elected and inaugurated last month. And this is from their reporter in Seoul. When Moon Jae-in became South Korean president last month, many feared the former human rights lawyer would shake up the nation's policies at the expense of its long-standing alliance with the U.S. Well, he's not only a human rights lawyer, he's also the former former chief of staff of Roh Moo-hyun. And you'll see in this article that he's basically continuing the fundamental foreign policy stance of Roh Moo-hyun, which was also a disaster, and this is also, you can see, turning into a disaster. Those concerns gained ground this week after the new leader ordered the suspension of key parts of a U.S.-owned and operated missile shield, a deployment that has become a bellwether for Seoul's relations not only with Washington but also Beijing. So the move, which coincided with the remarks from Mr. Moon's foreign minister nominee that she would reopen contentious talks on Japan's wartime use of sex slaves, set off alarm bells that South Korea was tilting once again into the orbit of China. Mr. Moon's first key foreign policy decision, some analysts say, amount to a strategic misstep and an attempt to please the domestic forces that propelled him to the presidency at the expense of the nation's broader international relations. And one might also say at the expense of the lives of many millions of people in South Korea. The missile shield decision, quote, was a critical mistake, unquote, said Kim Jae-chun, a professor at Sogang University and former government advisor. Quote, he is doing this to please key constituents, to show he cares about his domestic audience. Really? He's going to get him killed. Yeah. But he will send the wrong message to his former foreign counterparts, said Professor Kim, adding that the decision was unlikely to please either the U.S. or China. Senior U.S. officials, including Rex Tillerson at the State Department and James Mattis at the Pentagon, have indeed reaffirmed the importance of the Terminal High Altitude Area Defense Platform, more commonly known as THAAD. Moon Jae-in, quote here, Moon Jae-in is trying to implement balanced diplomacy. See, balanced diplomacy was the catchphrase adopted by Roh Moo-hyun, where Moon Jae-in was the chief of staff. And balanced diplomacy basically means that South Korea is going to balance its relations with the United States and with China. It's going to put itself in the midway position, in the midway position between good and evil, and try and see how that works out. And it means that, and it also means that South Korea will be a kind of a bridge between the United States and China. South Korea in 5,000 years has never been very good at diplomacy. And so as a result, it's been invaded close to 1,000 times during its 5,000 years of existence. I think that's a pretty good indication of how inept that South Korea has been in their foreign policy, not just in the current era, but over many, many years. But they were not invaded during the last several decades because they were under the protection of the United States. But now they want to move out of that. They want to move out of that situation and put themselves halfway between the United States and China. Anyway, so this is the quotation here from Lee Myun-woo of the Sejong Institute. Moon Jae-in is trying to implement balanced diplomacy, but unless there is a strong trust and confidence building, the approach might endanger Korea's alliance with the U.S. Meanwhile, Beijing has refused to budge. China has steadfastly opposed the installation of THAAD on the grounds that its powerful X-radar, which has already been deployed, along with 2 out of the planned 6 launchers, and will not be suspended, could spy on its own military developments. The X-radar does add, according to experts, marginally to the U.S. ability to spy on Chinese military. In other words, its main purpose is to detect when North Korean missiles are fired, because these THAAD missiles, the terminal high altitude area defense missiles, are, as it says, terminal. So when a missile is coming, you can either attack a missile as it is being fired, or in its early stage, or in sort of the midway point when it's at its high point, or when it's coming down. And the coming down stage is called the terminal stage. And so this is the terminal at high altitude area defense. So it is designed to shoot down missiles as they are in their terminal stage. In other words, as they're coming down towards their target. So this X-radar is designed to detect when a North Korean missile is being fired, and you know what the direction is and so forth, so that the missile can go up and knock it out. And so China is afraid that it will detect not only North Korean missiles, it will also detect their missiles. So if they ever want to fire a missile at the United States or at Japan, that this system will also detect that firing. From our point of view, it's a good thing.
That's right.
But from their point of view, they don't like that. Well, and experts say, well, okay, that's not entirely false. The Chinese statement is not entirely false, but it really doesn't add that much capability to what the United States already has in its ability to detect Chinese missiles. So China's not so much worried about their military security as much as they are about taking this opportunity to rally South Korean public opinion against the United States and to increase their influence over Korea and in the East Asian area. At least that's my breakdown. It's not so much about military, it's more about political influence and diplomatic influence, because China wants to go back to the age when it was the power in the major power in East Asia, and where, you know, South Korean kings. The reason China had an emperor and South Korea had kings was that a king is someone that has to receive permission from the emperor to be king. So every time a new king would be installed in Korea, a mission would go to the capital of China and to the emperor of China, saying that, this man has now become king, and we would like to have your official recognition. And the emperor, of course, they would take all sorts of tribute to the emperor for all sorts of stuff, and sometimes slaves, and so then the emperor would give his stamp of approval, and then that would be the legitimacy of this king. And so China was the power that did that, not only for Korea but also for other countries around its borders. And in the late 19th century, Western countries, European countries, and the U.S. has started to break down that influence of China, especially after the Opium Wars in the mid-19th century, and to the point that at the end of the 19th century, beginning of the 20th century, Korea decided to become independent of China. And there's actually a gate in Seoul today. It's called Independence Gate. And I don't know if the young people of Korea realize which country they became independent of when that gate was established. But that gate was established. It's at the it's in the western part of Seoul right now, and that gate was established to mark Korea's independence from China at the end of, I think, the beginning of 20th century. I can't remember the exact date. Of course, Korea became independent from China, but then it very quickly became a colony of Japan because China, Russia, Japan were all sort of vying for influence over the Korean Peninsula. Japan fought a war with China, partly to determine which country would be preeminent on the Korean Peninsula. Japan won that war. Japan fought a war with Russia, determined preeminent. Primarily, the purpose of that war also was to determine who would be the boss on the Korean Peninsula. Japan won that war, and so Japan took over the Korean Peninsula, and then from 1910 was the official annexation of Korea into Japan, but already from 1905, Korea lost its position it lost its independent foreign policy. Japan took over Korea's foreign policy. And so forth, and so Korea has not been good at foreign policy. When many examples of a failed foreign policy in Korea can be given, but now Korea is going back to that kind of thinking that we can be the small country that tells the big countries what to do. That we don't have to be with the United States. We can be our own big country, and we can sort of stand as a kind of a bridge between the United States and China, and being balanced. But this is a delusion. And what it means is that Korea will go back to being a vassal country of China. And certainly that will happen if the U.S.-Korea alliance falls apart, as it appears to be doing right now. So when the THAAD equipment was unveiled, China quickly launched an economic boycott of South Korean companies that severely affected companies such as Hyundai Motor and retail giant Lotte. Following Mr. Moon's decision, officials in Beijing on Wednesday simply reiterated Mr. Moon's decision, that is, to suspend the further deployment of THAAD, reiterated their clear, consistent, and firm opposition to the shield. So, quote, does this decision please China? They won't let it go so easily, said Professor Kim. Mr. Moon was elected last month following the historic impeachment of then-President Park Geun-hye on corruption charges earlier this year. For many, Wednesday's decision to halt the deployment of the 4 additional THAAD rocket batteries to conduct a full environmental assessment. He's saying we don't want to protect the country because if we protect the country, it may kill some frogs. So we want to make sure that the frogs are protected before we protect the human beings. So for many, Wednesday's decision to halt the deployment of the 4 additional THAAD rocket batteries to conduct a full environmental assessment was aimed at setting himself apart from the former president and underlining his sensitivity to public opinion. Moon Jae-in doesn't seem to want to aggravate the current uncertain situation by proceeding with the deployment, said Lee Dong-yeol, a professor at Dongguk Women's University. Given unfavorable domestic sentiment, he is using procedural legitimacy as an excuse to halt THAAD while taking his time to persuade China on the matter and improve relations with North Korea. This is part of the delusion. Persuade China? Why would China be persuaded? They've got 1.3 billion people, or 1.6 billion, or anyway, more than a billion. And Korea is the size of one of China's counties, really. Mm-hmm. It's a very small country with a very small population. So what leverage do they think that they have on China, other than the fact that, other than their U.S. alliance? But they want to be independent of that U.S. alliance and go it alone with China. Good luck. However, fears among U.S. officials that South Korea is charting a new foreign policy more sympathetic to China are likely to be exacerbated by the possibility of renewed talks with Japan over Tokyo's wartime use of sex slaves. See, this is also an issue that just won't go away. And and this is also being used by leftists sympathetic to China and China itself as a way of driving a wedge between two U.S. allies. Yeah, there were prostitutes. The Japanese military during World War II had prostitutes in their camps, around their camps, and many of them were Korean. And so the controversy is whether these Korean women were recruited by private Japanese individuals who were sort of contractors to the military, or whether the Japanese government was directly involved. And of course, there were not only Koreans used this way, but also Japanese women also were used that way. But this is still an issue that the Korean left has picked up as a way of driving this wedge between two U.S. allies, and it's been a very successful operation tactic by the left, and it has left, and the result is that Korea has not only its alliance with the United States, but it has also prevented Korea from developing an alliance with Japan, which is necessary in order for it to stand up to China. So, and Kuk Jinim was working very much when he was in Korea to establish this kind of bilateral relationship, a bilateral security relationship between Japan and Korea. And he was talking to the leaders of both countries, the military leaders and the political leaders of both countries, to try and bring about this kind of a thing. And if he had been able to maintain that effort, I think things would be much different today. China would not be as strong as it is, and Japan and Korea would be closer than they are today if Kuk Jinim had been allowed to maintain that. But, it is what it is. At the behest of the U.S., the two East Asian nations in 2015 signed a deal to resolve the long-standing source of friction. Japan, an ally of the U.S. and a regional rival to China, offered an apology and payout to finally and irreversibly close the matter. And I don't think that's the first time that they have finally and irreversibly tried to close the matter. I think there were other efforts in the past as well. But, always the Koreans keep coming back. The left Koreans foment the issue again. But on Wednesday, Mr. Moon's nominee for Foreign Ministry resurrected the issue, resurrecting the issue, telling Parliament she would seek to revive official talks. Because the left will not let it go, because this is their way of driving this wedge between the two U.S. allies. China will not allow the left in Korea to let this go. I will try to gather wisdom from the victim's point of view and continue talks with Japan so that sincere measures will be taken, said Kang Kyung-hwa, in comments likely to cause consternation in Tokyo. This signals the new government wants to be less influenced by Washington than the previous government. The 2015 agreement was a direct result of Washington's influence, said Song Min-soon, a former foreign minister. Japan is unlikely to move on the issue, and Ms. Kang's comments will sow seeds of mistrust between the two nations while encouraging China. There you go. I don't think she knows how sensitive the issue is. Of course she knows. That's why she's bringing it up. It's not going to happen, and to mention it, this government is opening up a can of worms, said Professor Kim. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, Professor Kim, but the left knows exactly what they're doing. And if you don't realize that, then I don't know why they put the title professor in front of your name. Certainly, I think most Koreans would understand that this is what's going on, at least the most conservative, right-minded Koreans. Let's talk a little bit more about Korea in the next segment. We'll take a break right now and come back in a minute or so.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. to the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise. We speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th of 2017. I'm Tim Elder sitting in for the second king of Chanryuk Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Malik Pachajan as we go through some of the news today. I want to stay on the topic of the Korean Peninsula. I see this article, I just got it. China could stop North Korea's nuclear threat in a heartbeat without firing a shot, says this reporter. This is in Business Insider. I haven't read the article yet, but let's go through it and see if he knows what he's talking about. Chinese President Xi Jinping has assured U.S. President Donald Trump that China has limited influence over North Korea, but that's only half true. Okay, so far so good. He got that right. It is true that diplomatic relations between the two are weak. Xi has never visited Kim Jong-un in Pyongyang, whereas he did visit South Korea, by the way. So. And Kim has never been to Beijing. High-ranking officials with ties, and South Korean president did go to Beijing. Park Geun-hye went to Beijing to celebrate actually a strange, it was actually a strange visit because she went to Beijing to celebrate the Chinese victory in World War II. But of course, it was not the Chinese communists that won World War II against Japan in Asia. It was actually the nationalists who are in Taiwan now. So the Chinese the communists were celebrating their victory, but actually they didn't fight very much. It was the nationalists who did the vast majority of the fighting. But anyway, that all being, it is true. Sorry, I got distracted there. High-ranking officials with ties to China and North Korea have been high-ranking officials with ties to China in North Korea have been executed at Kim's order. Yes, sometimes with packs of dogs, sometimes with aircraft guns. Yes, that's So Xi Jinping says, hey, all my people in North Korea, they've been killed. So Donald Trump, I don't have as much influence as you think I have. But as this reporter says, that's only half true. But Gordon Chang, the author of The Coming Collapse of China, writes in the cipher brief that 90% of North Korea's trade is done with China, accounting for 90% of its oil and in some years 100% of its aviation fuel. That, I think, may be old information. I think Russia has taken over these supplying North Korea with aviation fuel. But I think in general that is true, that certainly the vast majority of North Korea's trade is with China. After a provocative North Korean missile launch in 2003, China cut off its supply of oil to North Korea for 3 days. In no time, the Kim regime caved to international demands and sat down for the six-party talks on nuclear disarmament, which they used as a way of gaining more time to do more development on their nuclear arsenal, by the way. The six-party talks were finally a disaster. China can disarm North Korea in the blink of an eye, Chang wrote. And it could do so by crippling North Korea's economy, but at a huge cost to North Koreans. And that's why China doesn't want to do that, because they don't want to destabilize North Korea, because they like the status quo, and they want to keep the status quo. They want to. What they want in North Korea is, obviously, they didn't want all their contacts killed. Chang Sung-taek and others that they were using to control North Korea, and so that North Korea would, from time to time, cause trouble for the United States, and also would test the U.S. and South Korean responses to various things. For example, a few years ago, North Korea, just out of the blue, started firing artillery out of South Korean island. and populated island. And they killed one or two civilians, and they killed a few military people. And South Korea shot back, and doesn't seem to have done very much damage. So this kind of thing was helping North Korea and China evaluate the South Korean, especially South Korean, but also U.S. response to these kinds of provocations to see what the the capabilities of the South Korean weapons were. So as long as that was the case, as long as China could control North Korea, they had a good deal. They also had that buffer between the Yalu River, the Chinese border, and U.S. troops below the demilitarized zone. But now North Korea is becoming more and more difficult for China to control. So China would like to reestablish that kind of control, but destabilizing the economy would not accomplish that. And if anything, it would, because North Korea is a house of cards. It really, if you just do one wrong thing, the whole country's going to fall apart. So China is very sensitive to that. Sanctions on North Korea do not affect regular trade. Although UN takes very seriously the prospect of an aggressive nuclear-armed North Korea, economic warfare in the form of too harsh sanctions would harm or kill civilians. China also supplies at least a third of North Korea's food, according to Chang. Additionally, Chang pressing North Korea to the point of regime collapse would contradict its interests, as I said, as Beijing doesn't want to face strong, democratic, unified Korea on its border that could play host to U.S. military installations. And definitely, China does not want and will do everything it can to prevent U.S. installations being on its border. As long as the current Chinese regime is in power, the Chinese Communist Party is in power, it will not allow that and will fight that at any cost. But North Korea, with its incessant nuclear provocations and nearly weekly missile tests, they've done 9 missile tests now this year, functions as a giant bullseye for the U.S., though any military confrontation would run a high risk of going nuclear and killing hundreds of thousands, if not more. China will either decide to help us with North Korea or they won't, Trump said in April, interview with the Financial Times. If they do, that will be very good for China. If they don't, it won't be good for anyone. And there are, as Trump implies here, there are no good options on the North Korean peninsula. So as North Korea progresses toward a nuclear missile that can strike the U.S., China must decide how hard it's willing to press the rogue Kim regime while considering its increasingly strained relationship with the U.S. over supporting it. That's the end of that article, I guess. And I don't see a good outcome on the Korean Peninsula. Previous U.S. administrations, both Democratic and Republican, have chosen not to deal decisively with North Korea. And as a result, North Korea has been given more time and more money, especially from the Clinton administration, that gave North Korea $1.3 billion as a result of the six-party talks that were mentioned here. North Korea has been given time and money to develop its missile and nuclear capability. And yesterday we read an article about potential for North Korea to launch an EMP attack, an electronic, in other words, attack the electronic systems of South Korea or the United States. And experts have poo-pooed the idea, saying that North Korea doesn't really have the ability to shoot a missile up into the stratosphere and then have it re-enter the atmosphere without burning up in the process. But this article yesterday pointed out that that's not necessary. That all that North Korea has to do is get a freighter, for example, put a missile on a freighter,
Right.
get it close to the United States, and they don't have to put it up into the stratosphere. They only have to get it up to an altitude of 30 kilometers, or is it 30 miles or 30 kilometers? I can't remember which. But get it up to a certain altitude, and have it explode at that altitude. And then that will do the same thing. It will knock out key electronic infrastructure for a very wide area. There will not be the effect. You won't, at that distance, there will not be the effects of the nuclear radiation, or not so much. Apparently, I don't know. I don't want to test that, but the much larger effect will be the knocking out of the electronic systems. And so we're now at that point where people are saying that actually even now North Korea may have the ability to use its nuclear weapons to, and there's no doubt now that North Korea does have nuclear warheads, and that they're able to produce about 5 a year apparently, and so they're continuing to produce more nuclear warheads, and North Korea has been working with Iran most recently. They worked with Iraq in the past, and they worked with China. China gave a lot of assistance to North Korea in developing its nuclear program. Not so much the current president, I don't think, but the two presidents past, Jiang Zemin of China, kind of encouraged North Korean development with the idea that this would cause trouble for the United States in the Asian region. Maybe Jiang Zemin figured that China could continue to control North Korea, and that it would not lose that control. After all, they had the uncle of Kim Jong-un in their pocket. Well, at that time, it was not it was Kim Jong-il, so they would have said, okay, well, this is the husband of the younger sister or a sister of the head of North Korea, so we're safe. Maybe that's what he figured. But unfortunately, Kim Jong-un decided to take his uncle aside and to assassinate or to kill him for his ties to China. So Kim Jong-un is some people have asked me, is North Korea a rational regime? And in some ways it is. They have a goal, and they are pursuing that goal in a very rational manner. That goal is to explode a nuclear device on New York, Washington, and other American cities. And they've been consistent in pursuing that goal, and they're doing a good job of it in pursuing that goal. Is Kim Jong-un rational? Not so much, maybe. He's also, he is, he's able to kill anybody he wants, and so in that sense, he's in charge of the country. But the military also has a great deal of influence over him, and they are able to convince him, I guess, or they are able to. I guess part of the reason for these missile tests is to show their own leader, Kim Jong-un, what they're capable of, and that he can trust them. And so, and that to show that, we're making this progress. So if you give us more time, please don't attack South Korea now, because we need to make this much more progress. And then we really want to attack the United States. Maybe this is the kind of reason that they are using. Is with my experience in the South Korean organizations and how underlings deal with overlings, I can imagine that this kind of conversation is going on between the North Korean military and Kim Jong-un. Maybe. But certainly at some point, Kim Jong-un will say, okay, he's going to get up someday and out of the bed someday and say, okay, today's the day. Let's go for it. And there will be an attack. They are not going to develop this weapon and then simply rest on their laurels and not use it. There's going to be an attack to show the world what they have done, to show the United States what they have done, to show China what they have done. Because in the North Korean mythology, they are the strongest country in the world. Yeah. If you ask loyal North Koreans, not the defectors, but if you ask loyal North Koreans, this is what they will tell you. And they're not just parroting propaganda, this is what they believe. Of course, they believe that because they have limited access to information from outside the country or even inside the country. But North Korea will want to demonstrate this to the world at some point. And it will do it by exploding a nuclear device over New York, Washington, San Francisco, LA. Or if they cannot do that, as a second option in Japan, or maybe U.S. bases in South Korea or Guam. But somehow, somewhere, they will demonstrate to the world that they have accomplished their goal. And people will die. People will die. Many people will die. Depending on how and where it happens, that the number of people who could die could be in the millions. And if the United States tries to stop that by launching a preemptive attack on North Korea, then North Korea will retaliate. We can expect by launching its artillery that is deployed now along the demilitarized zone. Many of those artillery pieces are capable of attacking Seoul directly, where I think now about a quarter or more, well, in Seoul and in the surrounding area, 20 million, I think, people live now. And so hundreds of thousands, even millions of people will die because North Korea will be able to rain thousands of artillery shells down on that population center in the space of half an hour or an hour. So it's not a situation where people can say, "Oh, war has begun. I better get out of here." There will be no getting out. The roads will be clogged. People will be dying. Pandemonium. There will be pandemonium, chaos, and once war begins, it'll be a short war. And the United States will win it. South Korea will win it. Perhaps in a week or so. Because the United States will knock out those artillery pieces, even at a cost, by the way, because North Korea also has a pretty good air defense system, anti-aircraft system. So there will be a cost to American lives there as well. And also a cost to the 230,000 U.S. citizens who are living in South Korea, and to the tens of thousands of other foreign nationals who are living in South Korea, because South Korea is a very cosmopolitan country. So many nationalities will die, not just South Koreans. So the least bad option is to let China handle it. If I were king of the world, dictator of the world, I would order China to launch a military strike against North Korea. That's how I would handle this situation.
I see.
Let China take out those, North Korea's missiles and also those artillery pieces along the DMZ, and let China control North Korea. That's not a good option. That's not a good option, and True Father would be very unhappy with that. He would be very unhappy with that. But I don't see any better option. I think that is the least bad option.
Yeah.
I would hate to see China take control of North Korea. I would really hate to see that. But I don't see anything better than that. And the solution then to the next step then will be to work for the breakup of China, so that China's, in order to release China's grip on North Korea. That would be the next step after that. That's my suggestion. China, I think the best or the least bad option is to have China launch a war against North Korea.
I wonder if China did launch a war against North Korea, if North Korea would still use those artillery they have along the demilitarized zone.
Because they have all their artillery along that's pointed south.
That's right. To
Yeah,
Seoul.
so there's very little North Korean offensive military capability along the northern border with China.
Yeah.
their military capability, North Korea's military capability along the border with China, is designed to stop people from escaping North Korea and going into China. That's their objective there. And also, I think, along the Russian border as well. It's more for immigration purposes, illegal immigration, but outward immigration.
Right.
So, if China were to attack North Korea, North Korea would have of course, they would have the air defense system, the anti-aircraft system that they could use to shoot at Chinese aircraft. But I think they would have very little way to retaliate against China. They would have, of course, defensive capabilities, but they would, especially defensive capabilities around Pyongyang and so forth. But I think China could very easily overpower the North Korean military. During the North Korean War, of course, during the Korean War, of course, it started out as a war between North Korea and South Korea, and then, but of course, the United States entered the war along with with 16 countries, and then in October, China entered the war. So it started in June. So within 4 months, it became a war between the United States and China, because the United States subsumed the South Korean military. And even today, in wartime, the United States has operational control over South Korean military. That has been the case since the Korean War. The North Korean military was subsumed by China, and China assumed operational control over North Korea at that time. So, so North Korean military during the Korean War was incompetent, and General MacArthur obliterated it. He within 3 months after entering the Korean War, the United States had drove all the way up to the Chinese border. The problem was the Chinese came down. So even today, I'm confident that the Chinese military could easily overpower the North Korean military. Of course, winning the peace may be more difficult, and I think this may be what sort of prevents China from doing this, because North Koreans would resist a Chinese occupation strongly, I think, and there might be a guerrilla war or something like that. But the Chinese could go in and do what they need to eliminate the North Korean threat and then pull out. Sure, people would die, but far fewer lives would be sacrificed that way than if the United States were to attack and cause North Korea to launch a preemptive, retaliatory attack against South Korea and U.S. bases. So that is how I would want to handle the situation if I could have my way, which I don't.
Seems like the least.
I hope I know God is in control, and we will see what happens. It is, I think, the least bad option.
That's right.
But with North Korea so close to developing the capability to attack the United States, I think something will be done in the next few years. Something could have been done during the Clinton administration, and Bill Clinton almost did attack North Korea. Almost did attack North Korea. There are a few things that stopped that. One was that former President Carter went to Pyongyang, spoke with Kim Il-sung, and wired and telephoned back to Washington and says, I got a deal. And that's where the six-party talks came from, which were ultimately unsuccessful and ultimately only gave North Korea more time. And part of the deal that was reached as a result of Carter and the subsequent negotiations was that North Korea got $1.3 billion from the United States. And guess where they used that? They did not use it to develop their economy, I'll tell you that.
Right.
And another reason that Clinton decided not to attack then was that the South Korean president at that time, Kim Young-sam, was very much opposed to that kind of a step by the United States. And he was also a left-leaning president. But he pointed out that a lot of people would die in South Korea, and of course I can see how the president of a country would have a difficult time saying, yeah, okay, you can go ahead and do something that's going to cause hundreds of thousands of my people to die.
Exactly.
But ultimately, that decision not to deal with the North Korean problem then has resulted in what we have today, which is a situation where we cannot deal with the situation. We cannot deal with North Korea without many people being sacrificed, many lives being sacrificed. It may be, South Korean lives, American lives. It may be North Korean lives, maybe Chinese lives, but somewhere, somehow, many people are going to die, and there's no other way of dealing with this. And so we just have to figure out the best way that leads to a fundamental and long-term solution. That's a terrible situation that really has been ignored because no one really had the courage to deal with it fundamentally until now. Father, of course, always chastised Truman over this for firing MacArthur. MacArthur wanted to use nuclear weapons. He wanted to, when after the Chinese began to come down into the South Korean peninsula and overpower the UN forces with their huge numbers, General Douglas MacArthur asked for permission and asked to receive nuclear warheads, so that he wanted to explode, kind of create a radiation ban, a ban of radiation along the border between North Korea and China. He wanted to bomb on the Chinese side, and to create a ban of radiation that would, he believed, would stop the Chinese from coming into the peninsula. But this was a very radical proposal at that time, and largely for that reason, Truman fired him. And so Father often said that Truman was not a true man; he was a bad man.
Right. That's right.
He was not a true man; he was a bad man, because the Korean War finally ended in a stalemate, in an armistice that established this demilitarized zone, this highly militarized, by the way, demilitarized zone.
That's right.
It's one of the most highly militarized strips of land in the world.
Yep.
But it's called a demilitarized zone, and so this problem has come. But because no one has had the courage to deal with it until now, quite frankly. But now Trump happens to be in office at a time when there appears to be no choice but to deal with it. I don't think, no American president can allow North Korea to develop a missile or a capability that could strike a major U.S. city.
That's right.
The U.S. had a successful test of shooting down a missile recently, but there are serious doubts as to whether that would actually work in a actual wartime situation. And do we want to risk that?
That's right.
I don't think the U.S. president would want to risk that. And as you say, North Korea could come, they could put a missile on a freighter and bring that freighter close to U.S. territorial waters and then launch the missile from there. They don't have to go all the way up into the stratosphere.
Yeah.
So, all right, we'll continue to follow the Korean situation and see what happens there. Yeah. Let's take a break now, and we'll be back with more news from a Choni Group perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear Little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who.
At break of day, in hope we rise. We speak your name.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th, 2017. I don't know how many people got so depressed during that last segment that they turned off this broadcast. But I'm Tim Elder, and I'm sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon. So, yeah, I got myself depressed. But, hey, what can you do? I want to kind of lift our spirits a little bit.
Oh, okay.
I looked for something that would really lift our spirits, but I couldn't find anything that was that lifting. But here's something that may help some people. Text messages can help lower blood sugar levels, study finds. That's a lot better than North Korean missiles, isn't it? Yeah.
Definitely.
This is in the San Diego Union. My mother-in-law passed as a result of complications from diabetes, and there are other people in my life now who are battling with blood sugar levels. So I wanted to dedicate this story to them. I hope you're listening, watching. You know who you are. I know you know who you are. You know I know who you are. Text messages can help motivate type 2 diabetics to lower their blood sugar levels, according to a new paper that involved a researcher at Script Whittier's Diabetes Institute in La Jolla. The study randomly assigned 126 people whose blood sugar levels were not well controlled to either of two groups, one that received standard care and another that got up to 3 motivational diabetes-related text messages per day. Both groups were monitored for 6 months. At the end of the study period, people who received the texts had reduced their ATC blood glucose levels from 9.5% to 8.5%. Those who got standard care saw only a 0.2% decrease. While the gap was deemed statistically significant, neither group was able to bring its average glucose level down to the recommended threshold of 5.7%. Still, the The researchers said the text messages, which focused on diet and exercise or reminded participants to check their blood sugar levels, had about the same sugar-lowering effects as some glucose-lowering medications. Some of the text messages asked participants to measure their blood sugar levels and text back those numbers. People who did so achieved greater success at lowering their glucose levels, the researchers found. I wonder if that just helped them remember to take their medicine.
Or gave them some inspiration to try different things to
Yeah.
help lower. Or
Yeah, and
that they
also
found-
to not eat certain foods or to eat certain foods,
Right.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a daily reminder, I guess, just to help them say, I care. Basically, I think it says, I care about you.
That makes sense because otherwise you don't think about your normal daily activity, what you'll eat, what you'll do, or forgetting to exercise or something.
Yeah, or,
which-
I'm fortunate that I don't have this problem, but so it's difficult for me to get into the minds of people. But, in struggling to get my mother-in-law to take her situation seriously, it was really difficult to get her to do what was necessary. It's common sense things.
There are many things on
Yeah.
the internet which the people talk about diabetes or something like this that give you tips about what to take or what kind of herbs or different things to lower it. So if people were actively doing that, I think they could control their problem much better.
Well, each individual situation is different.
Yeah.
And certainly
right.
diet and exercise is, of course, always recommended by doctors, I believe. And especially if a person is overweight, then to control that weight, because I think that also contributes a lot to this problem. But, and I think, the kind of, it has to do with the kind of foods that we are eating these days. I think there are a lot of things that we're eating that are not healthy.
That's right.
And contribute to becoming overweight and obese, and contribute to this kind of a problem. Well, anyway, let's look a little more at this article. Taken together, these findings suggest that on a wider scale, simple, low-cost, text message-based approach like the one offered through the Dolce Digital program has the potential to significantly benefit many people who struggle every day to manage their diabetes and maintain their health, Phyllis Tsimakis said in a statement. This is the study's co-author that is making this statement. The study was conducted with patients living in San Diego and Riverside counties from October 2012 through August 2014. The participants were generally middle-aged women born in Mexico. So it would be interesting. I hope other people will also do this, but this is interesting that it has a simple, low-cost text messaging-based approach. Yeah. Hey, healthcare costs. Offered through the Dolce Digital program. I'm not familiar with that program, so I don't know if that's a good program or not, and maybe this whole study was conducted to promote this program and to serve someone's interest. I don't know. But if we can develop this kind of a simple, low-cost text messaging-based approach, that would be great.
Yeah.
I have a person or two that I might start text messaging right away.
There you go.
I don't know if she'll appreciate it, but anyway, it may actually raise her blood pressure. I think these people voluntarily participated in this study, I suspect. If I start text messaging someone without their consent or without their agreement, it may actually have the opposite effect by raising their blood pressure. So that was one hopefully uplifting kind of story. I hope someone was uplifted by that, and I hope that everyone who is on diabetes medication will take this opportunity to remember to take your medication this morning. All right, that is my public service announcement for the day. And here's another article. Your smile gives you away, it says. Smile and the whole world smiles with you? Well, not necessarily. In a winning scenario, Smiling can decrease your odds of success against the same opponent in subsequent matches, according to a new research presented by USC Institute for Creative Technologies and sponsored by the U.S. Army Research Laboratory. The U.S. Army is researching smiles. Cut their funding! Are you kidding me? The U.S. Army is researching smiles? Give me a break, as our king would say. But, you know, a man once told me, you can say anything to anyone as long as you say it with a smile.
Maybe
You
that's
could-
where
you
that
could-
saying came from in the Westerns. Smile when you say that, partner.
Oh, really? I don't know where that came from.
Oh, this if you look at the old Westerns,
Oh, yeah?
when the guy would tell him something, he said, "Smile when you say that, partner," or else you get in a gunfight with the guy.
I see. But a man told me that you can sit down with a person and just, you know, criticize them right and left and everywhere, and the person will take it as long as you say it with a smile.
I think to a certain point,
I've never been able to test that, actually.
it depends how far you go.
I've never been able to maintain a smile when I'm criticizing someone.
Yeah.
Depends on how far you go. Well, this man said you could say anything, absolutely anything.
Wow.
You dirty rat, you know, you dirty rat. People who smile during victory increase the odds of their opponent acting aggressively. Yes, that I agree with.
Yeah.
In victory, actually, goal line dancing or goal line celebrations are not good in real life. I mean, you know, in football we like to watch them, but end zone or what do they call it? End zone. I don't watch too much football. End zone celebrations. People who smile during victory increase the odds of their opponent acting aggressively. Yeah, don't brag about your victory. You know, I mean, you got what you wanted. Walk away.
Right.
If you've won, walk away. You know, don't rub it in by you know, by popping the champagne right in front of your opponent's face. You know?
Right.
People who smile during victory increase the odds of their opponent acting aggressively to steal a pot of money rather than share it in future gameplay, according to a paper presented in May at the International Conference on Poker. No, not poker. International Conference on Autonomous Agents and Multi-Agent Systems by USC ICT Research Assistant Rens Hogan. I'll bet they were researching poker. USC ICT research programmer, they have to give the names of the people who are involved in that. We don't need to know that. Conversely, researchers found smiling during a loss tended to help the odds of success in the game going forward. That might be true too. Maybe,
Keep a positive attitude.
yeah, but also, you know, put your opponent off guard. Oh, I lost, but man, I don't care. Yeah.
Yeah, no big deal.
No big deal. Yeah. Yeah. You dirty rat. Yeah. I'll get you next time. The study is in line with previous research published by senior author Gratch, whose main interest lies both in how people express these tells, see, they are researching poker, and unconscious action that betrays deception, and using this data to create artificial intelligence to discern and even express these same emotional cues as a person. Okay, we have the entrance of artificial intelligence here. We think that emotion is the enemy of reason. We think that emotion is the enemy of reason, but the truth is that emotion is our way of assigning values to things, said Gratch. Without it, we'd be faced with limitless choices. That's interesting. Without emotion, we'd be faced with limitless choices, so we assign value to things. Gratch said, and other ICT researchers hope to imbue virtual humans and even robots with value-based assessment using emotional pattern recognition and reaction to form what might be called intuition or gut-level decision-making.
In other words, what makes you feel good?
Well, this article is taking a very sinister turn here,
Oh.
where they're doing this in order to get virtual humans and even robots to have this kind of ability to recognize emotional patterns, I guess, in humans. Virtual humans cannot have emotions, I'm sure. Part of this research is accounting for the kind of emotional-based reasoning that might lead someone to act against their rational self-interest for the short-term satisfaction or payback. That is, cutting off their nose to spite their opponent's smiling face. For the study, 370 participants played a version of the British television game show Golden Balls, where participants decided to split or steal a pot of money. If both participants choose split, they do just that, split the pot. If one player chooses to split with the other stealing, the latter gets the whole thing. If both chooses to steal, neither wins. Each participant was paid $30, with participants receiving an additional tickets for a $100 lottery generated by their total number of successful steals and splits. As participants played the game against each other on video Skype, reactions were recorded and encoded using emotion tracking software that captures muscle movements in the face, including cheek, lip, and chin raises, dimples, and the compression and separation of lips. Facebook was developing this kind of emotion tracking software so that they can spy on people through their smartphone cameras and then sort of track people's emotions as they look at certain things on Facebook, especially advertising, I suspect, or articles also, to see how the person reacts to certain things, and then to then use that to decide what to show people, and especially what kind of advertising to show people, I suspect. As for motivations of the players, researchers hypothesize that successful smiling stealers open themselves to future punishment by the loser, while smiling during such a loss is seen as a gesture toward cooperation and a feeling of mutual success. You're in a business situation. How do you use smiles to help yourself succeed in business negotiations or success or in business situations?
Well, I think people who I deal with, workers around me, in order to gain cooperation.
You're in a management position, aren't you?
No, actually, I'm not. I'm an inspector of seafood, and I have to monitor things. But I have to work with a lot of different people around, and also I check in all the stuff that comes in receiving. So I have a good relationship with those drivers that bring stuff, so they feel very comfortable being there, and they're happy to deal with me, and we're always smiling to each other and joking or something like that.
But I'm sure there are people who cause you problems sometimes.
There has been in the past, but I don't know, it seems like I don't feel that so much anymore, especially because most of the people who deliver are kind of like regular drivers who come from their company.
So you've established personal relationships with them.
Basically, yeah.
And do smiles, do you consciously try to smile?
Not really. It's just happy to see them or happy to, deal with them. I want to deal in a good way, like in a good humored fashion way with them. So I talk with workers that way, or most of the time, of course.
But I'm sure when you inspect, there are some times when you have to reject something.
Yeah.
And then, do people take it personally?
No, I don't think so, because it's not theirs. They're just delivering it. So I just explain to them, sorry, and so yeah, okay.
I think the drivers that deal with you and the people that deal with you must feel very fortunate to be able to deal with someone
We have
of
a
your
good
temperament.
relationship, yeah, and it really works to your benefit, because it makes the time go much faster. You don't have to worry about, like negative feelings and stuff like this. It just makes the day go more smoothly. So you're happy to be there, and then you're happy to leave work when it's time to go. So.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll be back with more news from a technical perspective. That's the end of our uplifting news, but find out what's really going on in the world, all right? And I'm sure you'll have a better day as a result of it.
At break of day, in hope we rise.
Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Carr Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Carr Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Carr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Carr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit carr.com today.
At break of day, in hope we rise. We speak your name.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second King of Chanuk, Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Malik Pachajan. And a couple of people just walked into the studio here. They're dropping their kids off so that they can go down to Harrisburg to attend the March for Human Rights, March Against Sharia, that's being held down there today. Actually, Act for America, it's the nation today. And I want to take this opportunity to remind people of that. And you can go to the website actforamerica.org/rally, and they have a list of locations where these rallies are happening across the United States today. I think about 25 states or something like that. Wow. This is a march against Sharia law and for human rights. Our nation is built on the freedom of religion, a pillar of our democracy, which we must always respect, protect, and honor. However, many aspects of Sharia law run contrary to basic human rights and are completely incompatible with our laws and our democratic values. We at Act for America are committed to protecting women and children from Sharia law and its impact on Muslim women and children, including honor killing and female genital mutilation. You know, it's really, I would not have believed that female genital mutilation is actually going on in the United States, but there have been articles, multiple articles in recent weeks about doctors being arrested, I think especially in Michigan area, where doctors were performing this very barbaric procedure. We must ensure that every woman and child enjoy the protection afforded by the U.S. Constitution. Below is information about why Sharia is compatible with Western democracy and the freedom it affords, as well as the addresses for each march location, including a link to the Facebook event. So if you're interested in this, it's actforamerica.org/rally, and you can go there and see where the nearest rally is taking place today from your location. Okay, that, and then, so that was my second public service announcement for today, in addition to the one on taking your diabetes medicine, remember. Let's go back to the not-so-uplifting news. I'm on the worldtribune.com, and Jeffrey T. Cooner is a very good columnist that writes for this publication. And his column a couple days ago was titled, "Londonistan is the Future. PC paralysis in the West will never stop. Radical Islam." The Islamic terrorist attack in London represents the future. This is what happens when a nation allows unlimited immigration and Muslim extremists to take root. Multicultural Britain is no match for radical Islam. Like a Trojan horse, the invading enemy has entered within. On Saturday night, Islamists rampaged at London Bridge and Borough Market. Their weapons were a van and knives. They slaughtered 7 civilians and injured nearly 50, stabbing people's necks, chests, and throats. The attack in London followed the suicide bombing in Manchester, which killed 22 people and wounded over 100. You know, the police in Britain are saying, yeah, we did a good job. We responded and killed all 3 terrorists in 8 minutes. But, tell that to the families of the 7 people who died. If if there were people around there, if there were concealed carry weapon carriers around there, the situation could have been resolved potentially in much less than 8 minutes. And fewer than 7 people would have been killed.
And it's surprising the police got there so quick too. Because
But it's surprising that they got so
don't.
quick. But when seconds count,
Mm-hmm.
the police are only minutes away. And seconds counted for those 7 people,
Yeah.
and the police were minutes away.
Mm-hmm.
And being 8 minutes away, some people may say, yeah, that's a good response time. Yeah, here,
Which hardly happens.
yeah, and here certainly in this area, more like 45 minutes. But even 8 minutes didn't save those 7 people.
That's right. Or the
And-
50 who were.
And the 50 who were injured,
mutilated.
yes. In 3 months, Britain has suffered 3 terrorist atrocities, all of them the work of murderous Islamists. In fact, the British security services now admit there are over 23,000 potential jihadists in the country. This is an Islamic army, almost equivalent in size to the ISIS force in Syria. Moreover, polls show that over a third of British Muslims sympathize with the terrorists' goals. Over 50% of British Muslims want to impose Sharia law. While the native population's birth rate is declining, the Muslim community is swelling. The most popular name given to newborns in England is not John or Jennifer, but Mohammed. London's Muslim population is over 1.3 million and growing. The writing is on the wall. England's capital has been transformed into Londonistan. Hence, it is no surprise London's Muslim mayor, Sadiq Khan, has repeatedly said that terrorism is the price Europeans must pay for living in a big city. He's saying, get used to it. Hey. Khan is part of the problem. Instead of combating radical Islam, he is openly encouraging its appeasement. Khan wants to allow even greater numbers of Muslim immigrants into London and the United Kingdom. The reason is obvious. The more Islamic Britain becomes, the more powerful Muslim politicians such as Khan become. This is why he champions open borders, globalism, and multiculturalism. And by the way, he doesn't want Trump to come to his city.
That's right.
For obvious reasons. Yeah, he doesn't want someone coming to his city who's going to speak out against Islamic terrorism. He doesn't want that. He wants to appease Islamic terrorism, not speak against it. So he doesn't want Trump to come. Under the ideology of cultural diversity, Islamic civilization is able to relentlessly expand. Khan is part of a Muslim fifth column. His goal is Britain's national and civilizational suicide, seeking to replace the Union Jack with the crescent of Islam. Yes, Britain's liberal elites are ultimately to blame. For decades, they actively promoted mass third world immigration, especially from the Muslim world. The authorities have turned a blind eye to increasing radicalization in schools, prisons, and mosques. It has become so bad that one of the London jihadists last year took part in a TV documentary in which he called for holy war against the West, and law enforcement did nothing. It was on television. One of the 3 people who perpetrated this attack in London, on the London Bridge and surrounding neighborhoods, was on television calling for holy war. And the title of the documentary was The Jihadi Next Door.
That's right.
Political correctness has paralyzed British society. The result is terrorism, mayhem, and mass murder. The sad truth is that the liberal West cannot stand up to Islamic extremism. With their fanatical embrace of pluralism and moral equivalence, see, that's fanatical. We're not talking about Islam now, we're talking about the liberal West. The liberal West is fanatical in their embrace of pluralism and moral equivalence. This is why you see the opponents of Trump now being so fanatical. Liberals refuse to acknowledge this seminal reality about militant Islam. It is not a religion, but a death cult. It is not a religion of peace. It is a socio-political ideology based on cultural supremacy, violence, and conquest. In every country where Muslims are the majority or a significant minority, extremists emerge who engage in holy war and persecution against infidels. So we were talking about Indonesia before, and he says in every country, that's unequivocal, extremists emerge. And I think during the next break I'll do a little bit of research on Indonesia. This is true across the Middle East, North Africa, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Indonesia. Okay, all right, so he says it's true in Indonesia as well. The southern Philippines, China, India, and now Western Europe and America. In short, the rise of Islam is never accompanied with peace and social tranquility. So, and this, he says, is where Muslims are the majority or a significant minority. This is the case. So this ties in with what David Wood was saying about the 3 stages of jihad, where, and I think Muhammad also used this tactic, where when they were in the minority, he was saying, well, let's get along. And then when they became the majority, then they started killing off their opponents. This is why liberalism's experiment in multiculturalism is doomed to fail. Islamic civilization cannot peacefully coexist with the West. The only question is how many must die at the altar of political correctness. President Trump is right. The United States needs a travel ban, especially from the 6 greatest terror exporting nations on earth. It is simple common sense. The more potential jihadists are brought in, the more terrorist attacks will occur. Yet even this elementary proposal is being vilified by the left as a form of bigotry and racism and Islamophobia. When Trump took to Twitter after the London massacre to renew his call for a ban, CNN host Reza Aslan, an Iranian Muslim, tweeted that the president is a piece of shit. Leftist media elites exorciated Trump for politicizing the terrorist attack. In other words, the mortal threat to democracy is not a rampaging army of suicidal Islamists, but a president who advocates basic anti-terrorism measures. This is treason bordering on madness. Britain, along with much of Europe, is finished. Its moral decay and civilizational decline is too far along. Its spiritual vacuum is being filled by radical Islam. I see this particularly in Sweden. Have you been watching this?
A little bit I've been watching, yes. And it seems like Sweden's in denial of the problem there.
Well, Sweden's in
many
denial,
women
and other
being
countries as well. But
Yeah.
I think especially Sweden is probably the most extreme case. They appointed, they have their all-women cabinet, I think, and so they're using this to show how they are, progressive and at the forefront of civilization and the evolution of humankind. But meanwhile, they're being taken over, and they're not even admitting it.
That's
And
right.
when people try to point it out, when President Trump tried to point this out in his inaugural address, people tried to say, no, he's lying, but then when they went and checked, it actually turned out to be true.
Yeah. So many women got raped in Sweden all the time. They deny it.
The Europeans, with the exception of Poland, Hungary, and Russia, do not have the will or the ability to confront the gathering storm. I would also add the Czech Republic. We read some stuff about the Czech Republic yesterday, which gives us much hope. Even though the Czech Republic has a relatively small Muslim population now, the president of Czech Republic, who says until last August he was not so much in favor of letting people carry arms, but now he says, yeah, he said he called it a Holocaust, actually, coming Holocaust. He used the word Holocaust of Muslims coming in, and Islamist extremists coming in and causing death and destruction in the country. And so he wants his people now to be armed to be able to deal with this.
Yeah.
And of course, the problem with these Poland, Hungary, and also the Czech Republic is that the European Union is assigning them quotas on how many migrants they must take in, including mostly from Islamic majority countries. And Poland and Hungary are saying that we're not going to do that. So then the EU will say, well, then if you don't do it, then we will impose sanctions. And Poland and Hungary are saying, well, the cost of those sanctions is less than the cost of having our country destroyed.
Right.
And so they're willing, well, so far at least, the political leadership says that they're willing to take those sanctions. But we'll have to see whether the electorate is awake enough to support them. Of course, probably good for them to actually leave the EU
That's right.
if that's going to be the price of their membership.
Yeah.
So here we are again with the depressing news. But it's quite amazing. As we're living in an amazing time when we're seeing Europe being taken over by Islam. Of course, Islam. There were periods in the past 2,000 years, when Islam made serious inroads into Europe, but those militaries were beaten back at some point, and so we have the development of civilization, or democracy and liberal civilization. But now liberalism has turned to fanaticism, and is no longer liberal. It's extremely fanatical and closed-minded. Liberal means open-minded.
Right. It's supposed to be.
Yeah, that's what classical liberalism is. That means,
Yeah.
I don't agree with you, but I will fight for your right to say it.
Yeah.
That's what the classical liberalism was, but that kind of liberalism has actually become very, very small. Libertarians still say that, but liberals do not.
That's right.
They actually, if anyone disagrees with them in the United States, that person is labeled a Nazi, because liberalism has become, they have fallen into a certain cult and a religion. And they are fanatical believers in this secular religion, and anyone who disagrees with them is an infidel, except they don't want to use a word such as infidel, so they use the word Nazi instead.
Yes.
And so this is the result of that. And President Trump is trying to prevent the same kind of situation occurring in the United States by having far more vetting of people coming in. And that was the idea behind his travel ban. And it's before the Supreme Court now. And I think in the next week or so, the Supreme Court will be hearing arguments on that. And we'll be following that very, very closely. And we certainly hope that the Supreme Court can inject some measure of adult supervision into the judicial system and approve that travel ban, and to knock down the orders by lower courts to prevent that travel ban from going into effect. Well, let's take a break now. We'll be back in a minute or so with more news from a Choni Group perspective.
At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name. At break of day, in hope we rise, we speak your name.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
And welcome back to the King's Report for Saturday, June 10th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 5th month, 16th day. And I'm Tim Elder sitting in for the second game of Cheongguk Hyungjin Moon. And I'm here with Malik Pachajan, who is in the fish business. And I was going to go to an article on climate change. And actually, this is an article about how a growing petition of 31,487 U.S. scientists reject global warming hypothesis. But during the break, I was asking you, Malik, about whether you're in the fish business, and fish
Yes.
are in the ocean, and people who talk about climate change talk about a lot about the ocean. So I thought that, of course, this whole thing would affect your business, but you're saying that it does not.
I don't believe so, because the only thing that would affect it is the environmental situation of fish that might be disappearing because they're over catching them or something like this, where they place restrictions on catching those type of fish. And
What type of fish do you mostly deal with? Is it tuna?
Tuna is the most popular one. Salmon is second, and of course the salmon are farm-raised salmon, so they're not really wild salmon. And then all kinds of other fish. Mackerel, Spanish mackerel, red snapper, grouper, all kind of shellfish, lobsters.
And what do you know what oceans these mostly come from?
From all over the world, actually, especially the tuna. Tuna come from Greece, come from Spain, come from down south, South America, all over. Yeah. Salmon are farm-raised. Most of the farm-raised salmon we get are from Norway or from Faroe Islands in Denmark.
Okay, so the whole human population is in an uproar about climate change, but the tuna really don't care about it.
Tuna doesn't really care at all. They just keep moving.
They just keep moving until they get caught and
That's
they get
right.
delivered to your business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Luckily, they keep having babies too.
They
so-
keep having babies. Yeah, that was, but you would think though that if the ocean temperatures change, that might affect the way that tuna have babies or lay eggs. I guess they lay eggs or have babies. I guess
I believe they have babies.
they have babies. Okay, so
I
they're
believe
actually
so.
are they? Okay,
Yeah.
I don't know that much about tuna.
Yeah.
So I would think that would affect the tuna in some way.
The climate change?
Yes.
Well, according to science, I believe there's a very fractional climate change.
Right.
Some tenths of a degree or
Yes, yes,
something.
yes.
So I doubt if that would affect any fish at all, especially if it gets too warm in one area, then they move along to a colder area. They're
So
smart.
maybe the tuna are not nearly as concerned about climate change as people are, and it seems that there are 31,487 U.S. scientists who agree with the tuna.
That's right.
Let's go through this. Several of the U.S. top climatologists and at least 2 Nobel Prize-winning physicists are among some 30,000 U.S. scientists who have signed a petition saying that human-caused global warming hypothesis is without scientific validity. The Global Warming Petition Project has 31,487 signers and is growing. The petition strongly rejects, as unproven, the hypothesis of man-made global warming or climate change. 4 NASA astronauts and more than 9,000 PhDs also signed the petition. The petition reads as follows: there is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will, in the foreseeable future, cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere and disruption of the Earth's climate. Moreover, there is substantial scientific evidence that increases in atmospheric carbon dioxide produce many beneficial effects upon the natural plant and animal environments of the Earth. Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. Trees breathe in carbon dioxide.
exactly. I don't know if people in the city realize this, but here in the country, we have a lot of trees. We have a lot of trees. You look out the window and during the non-winter months, and mostly what you see is green. You don't see gray buildings. You see green trees.
That's right.
And all those green trees are breathing in carbon dioxide
They need it.
and exhaling oxygen.
Yep.
Yeah. And I don't know if these people, these left-wing people in the city understand this. But yeah, we need carbon dioxide. And
That's
the more
right.
carbon dioxide we have, the happier our trees are.
That's right.
Yes,
More will grow, will give us more oxygen to breathe.
yes. The petition also urges the U.S. government to reject the global warming agreement that was written in Kyoto, Japan, in December 1997, and any other similar proposals. The proposed limits would harm the environment, hinder the advance of science and technology, and damage the health and welfare of mankind. All right, so they're saying that these agreements that are allegedly supposed to save the world from global warming are actually destroying the world. The project's website states these scientists are instead convinced that the human-caused global warming hypothesis is without scientific validity and that government action on the basis of this hypothesis would unnecessarily and counterproductively damage both human prosperity and the natural environment of the Earth.
I agree.
The project's website also notes in PhD scientists alone, the project already includes 15 times more scientists than are seriously involved in the United Nations IPCC process. That's the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change in the United Nations. The very large number of petition signers demonstrates that if there is a consensus among American scientists, it is in opposition to the human-caused global warming hypothesis rather than in favor of it. New signatures are being collected here. Let's go to that website to see what is there. Global Warming Petition Project. See if they get us an update on the number of people who have signed it. I don't see a number. Yeah. Here on the right we see a list of names being scrolled. I imagine those are the people who have signed this. So it turns out that global warming, the alleged global warming, is what we suspected all along. That it's actually not an effort to save the world, not an effort to save the environment, but it is an effort to concentrate power at the international level, because they create an international problem, and then they say, okay, we have this international problem which they created, which is not actually a problem, but they created it. But they say in order to find a solution to this international problem, we have to have an international solution. And so governments have to give up part of their sovereignty to the United Nations and be willing to take directions from some kind of an international organization, or such as the United Nations. So that establishes their power internationally. It's a global power grab, basically. And so we see that is the whole point behind this alleged global warming effort.
Yeah.
But people are in this religion now. It's become a religion. So even when people were to read this article and see the petition and see that 31,487 people have signed this, these are scientists who have signed this, and even in the fact that the number of PhD scientists who have signed this petition is 15 times more than the number of PhDs who are seriously involved in the United Nations anti-global warming effort, they still will not come out of that cult. They still will not come out of that cult because it is their religion, and they are sure that because this is part of the liberal orthodoxy, and they cannot let go of that liberal orthodoxy because they've basically decided to put their reason on hold and just not listen to reason. And as a result, this is going to bring about, if it's allowed to continue, it's going to bring about very bad effects for the environment and for the world, because people will lose their sovereignty. Now we saw in the Brexit vote, and again in the election of Donald Trump, there are people standing up who want to retain their sovereignty. And also in the Czech Republic, we saw yesterday, where the Czech Republic is also beginning to stand up. Poland and Hungary are beginning to stand up against the EU. Russia is standing up against the EU. Not that Russia is a particularly ideal society or anything like that, but it's part of the effort to fight against this kind of a power grab, international power grab. That's represented by the EU and also by this aspect of the United Nations, where Russia is fighting against this as well. What are your opinions on climate change? Is this a real thing?
Of course not. I mean, when I say of course not, I mean man caused climate change. Climate's been constantly changing ever since the beginning of time.
Right.
It was a whole lot warmer 7,000 years ago than it is now.
Yeah, we saw. I had some graphs. That was on Wednesday, I think. I had the graphs of that were in scientific papers, and some 50-something scientific papers this year alone. I think have shown that climate change is not a thing. And we looked at some of the graphs on about that. Let me see if I can pull those up again. Keep talking while I look for those.
Well, also I remember when I was in college studying, I forget which course, but it said that there was a time when there was so much carbon dioxide that the trees were flourishing all over the earth. So you have people who are against the destruction of trees. It doesn't make sense. So
I'm not always towards.
But of course, we have to be concerned about a clean environment. This Paris Treaty was saying that China didn't have to change
Right. Anything is
for 30 years or something like this.
Yeah,
Well,
they until at least 2030. Yes.
Yeah, 2030. That's
Yes.
right.
Even though China emits twice as much carbon
Right.
as the United States.
Well, America has cleaned up their technology where they're not polluting the air as much as they used to a long time ago.
I'm not able to pull up that Breitbart article so quickly as I would like. But there were a number of studies and different studies that studied different parts of the world. And one said that in Europe, for example, it was warmer in the early 1400s than it is today.
That's right.
And in China, it was warmer 8,000 years ago than it is today.
And one time Greenland was really green.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I forget when it was, in the 1500s or something, when Europe was really warm, that they were growing all these grapes for wine and everything. And
Oh, and this is another thing that they studied, the period, the timing of the grape harvest in France, to see, because depending on the temperature, that harvest can occur earlier or later. And this study actually plotted the time of the harvest of in each area, and also the different kinds of grapes and wine in different areas of France. And they found that there's really no statistical anomalies very much, or significant change, statistically significant change in that change in the harvest of grapes. You would think that, that if things get warmer or colder, then maybe, if it gets too cold, maybe grapes don't grow at all. Or if it gets too warm, maybe they, I don't know, maybe you can get 2 crops a year or something like that. But that hasn't happened.
yeah.
So,
And at one point it became so cold. I know that even in New York area where I grew up, I think just before I was born sometime, that it was so cold that the Hudson River was frozen that cars could cross over it. So, the climate does change.
yes, climate does
Right?
change, yeah.
It gets colder, it gets warmer.
Yes,
We don't affect that. Mother Nature does.
yes. Yeah, I think human beings tend to exaggerate our ability to affect the world. Of course, locally, you can have a polluted pond or polluted lake, and the Great Lakes, for example, Lake Erie, I think at one time was extremely polluted. I think that's been improved somewhat. So on a local, smaller basis, yes, human beings do have a great effect on the environment.
Right.
And Beijing today, for example, where people have to wear masks because their air is so polluted.
Yeah.
That's another example where Beijing, which is not required under the International Climate Treaty to improve their climate.
Yeah, that's right.
But so on a local area, human beings definitely do have an effect. But on the larger scale, I think maybe we tend to exaggerate our influence on the environment.
Yeah.
Good.
And I think there are some smart people who are taking advantage of that for their own position and prosperity.
Prosperity, yes, because the idea now is to introduce a carbon tax. To tax people for the amount of carbon that they emit.
Yeah.
Even though the trees enjoy that and are very happy to have us emitting carbon, but there are people who say we want to tax that. And look at how much money Al Gore has made. The man is creating a huge wealth based on this lie. And we've seen other articles recently about how this whole thing about the rise of sea levels is false and is a lie. But the religion continues.
And some of the proponents like Al Gore and others are polluting the environment more than many other people with their private jets, with their huge mansions that
Yes.
they're... So,
And all the hot air that they are emitting, by the way.
especially that. Especially
All
that.
that carbon dioxide that they're emitting. How about that?
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the good thing is that people are beginning to rise up and demand their sovereignty. And so we hope that this will continue. Unfortunately, in Britain, well, I don't know if unfortunately, we'll have to see how the effects of what happened in Britain. We'll cover that in a future broadcast when the dust settles a little more. Because Britain, of course, after Brexit and now this time Theresa May has been weakened very much. And we'll have to see what effect that has on the British negotiations with the EU that are going to start in just a little over a week now. In about 9 days now. I think it's going to start June 19th. But it may be that it'll be interesting to see, because Theresa May is not going to last very much longer as a prime minister now. I think most of the articles that I've read predict that she's going to step down in the next few months. And we'll see who rises up to replace her. Probably someone within the Conservative Party will replace her. And that person may be more conservative and may actually take a stronger stand
That would be good.
towards the whole Brexit negotiations. So that we don't have time for today, and we'll get to in a future broadcast as we see things more clearly
Right.
in Britain. Yeah.
Know the truth, and the truth will set you free.
There you go. That's the last word today. But God bless, Godspeed, God bless, and may His kingdom come.
Amen.
Thank you for joining us.